Good morning, guys. Welcome to the Bears Huddle podcast. Good morning, Chicago. This is your UK take on all things Chicago Bears. Guys, it is the 18th of September. Look, it's what day? We're up to Thursday now, and we're building up obviously towards the weekend. The Bears take on the Cowboys in an attempt to redeem their season. Look, I think we can all kind of admit that, there's so many people blaming so many different people for what has happened to the Bears at the start of this season. To go 0-2 is, quite frankly, not what I was expected. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Was I expecting the Bears to be 2-0 coming out of these first two games? Certainly not. I was expecting, to be honest with you, my record projection was a 1-1. I expected us to beat the Vikings at home and to lose to Detroit, not by as big a amount as we did, but to lose to Detroit in Motown. That was my expectations. But, look, one big issue. Now, look, before I go any further, people say, people are crazy calling for the benching of Caleb. I never call for the benching of Caleb. That video was just discussing what people are saying. So, look, let's get some perspective on this one. Was Caleb the biggest problem from Sunday? Of course he wasn't the biggest problem from Sunday. Caleb was not at his best, obviously, and not where we want him to be yet. I still think that will take time. But at the end of the day, Caleb was nowhere near the biggest issue and has not been the biggest issue for the last 5 quarters of football. I think if you looked at those last 5 quarters of football, the biggest issue for the Bears over those last 5 quarters of football is the 8th highest paid defense in the NFL. The defense has sucked. Now, I know injuries are playing a part. TJ Edwards obviously is not at his very best. Jalen Johnson should never have played at all. Tyreek Stevenson is just a joke at this moment in time. Kyler Gordon is missing, which is a huge miss. And I think as well, the Austin Booker missing and after a phenomenal preseason is a big thing also. But let me be honest with you, the defense has been poor. It has been shocking. And now considering that Dennis Allen, considering Dennis Allen is, one of the best DCs in the NFL, or so called, we should not be struggling as we are at this moment in time. The D-line looks awful. Grady Jarrett has not made any impact. The edge rusher positions are just a joke. I mean, 0 pressures. You've got Jared Goff, a quarterback who cannot run, a quarterback who is not mobile, a guy who is definitely not one of those modern quarterbacks, yet we don't get after him at all. We do not put him under any pressure. We do not sack him. We do not go after him. Now, considering we have 2 of the top 20 highest paid edge rushers in the NFL, and in Dayo Odeyingbo, a guy whose contract is going to go through the roof next season, there is a real concern on those edge rusher positions. And one of the biggest concerns is around Montez Sweat. Obviously, Sweat is on a big deal at the Bears. Now, if we look at what Sweat is getting per season in comparison to other players in the NFL, let's have a little look. Now, there has been a case of a former Bear has thrown some shade and had very strong words for Montez Sweat, and we will get to that in a moment, so hang on for that. But if you look at what their average yearly salary is for these guys, now Micah Parsons, obviously highest paid, 46.5, plays for the Fudge Packers, the horrible Packers. TJ Watt, 41 million, Myles Garrett, 40 million. All 3 of those guys, exceptionally talented, exceptionally good football players, real top guys who can make a difference, game-changing players, and I'm certainly not putting Montez in the same, kind of bracket as those guys. Daniel Hunter of the Texans, Max Crosby of the Raiders, Nick Bosa, 34 million, Trey Hendrickson, 29 million, Josh Hines-Allen, 28.25, Nick Burns, 28.2, Nick Bonito, 26.5. Montez Sweat gets $24.5 million a season. $24.5 million a season. And I'm sorry, but one of the questions you've got to ask is Montez Sweat, at this moment in time, showing that he is worth $24.5 million worth of cash at this moment in time? And I'm sorry, but the answer is absolutely no to that one. Montez Sweat is nowhere near worth $24.5 million. Not a chance. I mean, if you look at his sack production, let's take out the Washington situation for the moment, okay? He never had double-digit sacks at Washington. Let's get that clear, even in seasons where he played full seasons. But with Chicago, since he's come to the Bears, the first season, yes, 6 sacks in 9 games, pretty impressive in that season that he was traded to us. But you take the whole seasons he's played, 16 games last season, 5.5 sacks. This season, 2 games played, no sacks at all as of yet. And I'll be honest with you, this is a guy we are paying a substantial amount of money to. And 11.5 sacks in 3 seasons is not mighty impressive, is not certainly up there with some of those other guys who are in and around him at this moment in time. And you've really got to start to raise some questions about Montez and whether he's worth that money. I think difficult conversation maybe between Dennis Allen, maybe between Ben Johnson and Montez Sweat needs to take place. It really genuinely does. Because this is not good enough. This is nowhere near good enough. I mean, I'm not pinning everything on Montez Sweat. The whole defense has sucked out big time. I mean, in the last 5 quarters of football, we have given up over 600 yards and over 60 points in the last 5 quarters of football. I think it's 642 yards in the last 5 quarters of football. And I think it's somewhere around about 64, 65 points in the last 5 quarters of football. That is not good enough by any stretch of the imagination, and it needs to improve. So I'm not putting this all on Montez Sweat, but Sweat has a big part to play in this. He is one of the defensive leaders. He's one of the top paid guys. He's the edge rusher. And if you look at the other guys in that list, and like I said, I'm not putting him in that same category, but if you look at those defensive leaders, Micah Parsons is a defensive leader, TJ Watt, defensive leader, Myles Garrett, defensive leader, Daniel Hunter, defensive leader, Max Crosby, defensive leader, Nick Bosa, Trey Hendrickson, Josh Hines-Allen, all defensive leaders. If you're going to be paid in the same ballpark as those guys, you need to be proving that you are a defensive leader, something Montez Sweat has not done. Now, one former Chicago Bear has aimed some very strong words at our edge rusher, and that is Patrick Manley, who was the long snapper for 16 seasons for our Bears. He opened fire on Montez Sweat big time. I mean, he did obviously round on the whole team into some degree and the whole defense to some degree by saying nobody's playing up to their pay. And I think that's fair enough. There is nobody on that defense or I think on the offense at this moment in time, with perhaps the exception of Rome Odunze, who's been absolutely fantastic in my opinion, who's paying up to their play. I think Joe Tooney as well, actually. Let's give him that one. This is what he had to say about Montez. He said, Montez is great. He came in and when we started, he came up with this Tez effect. Where is that? I want to see that. There's just plays where he's not finishing. You're getting paid to win those battles. You're getting paid to make a difference in the game. And he's right. He came in and he played exceptionally well in those first few games, those 6 sacks in 9 games. But then he's gone off the boil big time once he's got paid. First 2 weeks of the season, he's recorded 6 tackles and defended 1 pass. No sacks as of yet. 2024 season, as I said, was not good. And, Patrick Manley criticising him, I think, is absolutely spot on with what he's saying. He is correct in what he is asserting about Montez. Saying that, there's just plays that they're not finishing. You're getting paid to win those battles. You're getting paid to make a difference. And he's not making that difference. And Patrick Manley's right. If you're getting paid $24.5 million a season, you need to be a difference maker. You need to be a player who goes out there and shows you can be a difference maker on the defensive side of the ball. Now, look, the issue obviously there is that the pass rush is not good, which means that the quarterback is getting more time on the ball to pass that ball, more time to go through his progressions, time to go through his reads, which obviously then is opening up on our secondary. And as we know, the secondary at the moment is a huge issue. JJ is out for the rest of the season. Tyreek Stevenson gets cooked like a fool on a regular basis. Nashawn Wright is about as effective as a 3-legged donkey. You've got Byard and Brisker. Byard stanked the joint out against Detroit. Brisker is a decent player, but injury does haunt that guy. So the secondary is a major issue as well at the moment. So, if your secondary is an issue, you've got to try and protect that and hide that some way. If you're not willing to go out and get a top cornerback to replace JJ the rest of the season, you've got to hide that, and your pass rush is absolutely fundamental to that. And our pass rush at the moment sucks balls big time. Guys, Montez needs to step it up, and he needs to step it up this weekend against the Cowboys. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching the Bears Huddle podcast. Guys, as always, bear down.